Hello everyone and welcome back to some more Warhammer Underworlds for the channel, and today Ephilim's Pandaemonium is getting another run of it, this time up against an older warband I think from the Beastgrave era of the game, which is before my time with the game. The Wurmspat, which is a Nurgle themed witch lady, and her two bodyguards that got eaten by a worm and spat out because it upset they upset its stomach, which is just lovely. So before we get into it, I would just like to mention if you are enjoying Warhammer Underworlds or indeed the content on the channel in general, please do consider becoming a channel member to help support this, or if you find a video you especially enjoy, pressing the thanks button. It helps out a great deal and is all reinvested in the channel, helps us pick up new miniatures. So without further ado, let's get started and take a look at both sides. So Tzeentch is going up against Nurgle as all things intended today, with Ephilim the Unknowable at the back here leading this warband, and then from left to right we have Flamespuller, we have, I'm just going to call him Starfish, but he's Appletrax the Starfish, or Stairfish. I keep on saying Starfish, but it's actually Stairfish, so forgive me. Then we have Kindlefinger, and then right at the end here we have the Spawn Maw, who is mostly mouth. And at the start of each round we'll once again be working through the plot for this group, where some of the changer units are going to get advantages, including inspiring, and some of them are going to get disadvantages, like being staggered. And so this is the Wurmspat, being led by Fecula Flyblown, which is the witch in the middle here. What a wonderful, fantastic name. Then we have Gulgok the Butcher over here. I'm just going to call him the Butcher because I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. And then we have Sepsimus Plaguesworn with the spear over here. So just three of them. They all have 4 health each. They inspire if 3 or more fighters are dead and or have wound tokens, so any combination of those two things will actually, does it specify enemy fighters as a, oh, it is enemies, yeah, so them getting hurt does not count. They all roll defense dice looking for shields, and their special trait is that for every shield rolled in their defense roll, the damage dealt is reduced by 1 to a minimum of 1. So that means even if, say, a crit hit gets through, if their defense roll was still a shield, the damage done is reduced by 1. They're not as tanky as you'd think Nurgle is. I've tried these once in a 3-player game I played with a couple of friends. 4 health, it's not as much as you would think in this game. Anyway, I think that's all we've got to say about them. They don't have any other special mechanics. Fecula is a wizard level 2. She has a long range spell attack that doesn't do much damage. They've all got damage to close range attacks, without exception all needing hammers. One of them rolls 3 dice, the other 2 roll 2. And generally speaking, on their inspired side, they get to roll extra defense dice, which does make them feel more Nurgle and tanky then. But either way, we'll get set up. Alright, we are all set up and good to go. However, I will warn you, you may hear a chainsaw in the background. I don't know what's going on. There's some work going on around the house. I had no idea it was going to happen. Oh, you might be able to hear it right now, for instance. I'll try and record when it's not going, but it's going pretty consistently, which is incredibly frustrating. But we are set up, and the Wurmspat will be taking first action. First of all, though, we have to talk through Ephilim's Pandaemonium, that card of just going through this checklist for each changer. We basically went down the line with it. Flamespuller inspired, Stairfish was staggered, Spawnmaw got a guard token, and Kindlefinger was pushed 1 hex, and he actually chose to go back because he's got range and the Nurgle guys are slow. I think that about covers everything except flipping over objectives. Of course, there was 3 over in the Tzeentch area. They've got objective 2, objective 1, oh, and objective 3. They've got 1, 2, 3, so they've got all the low scoring ones, which isn't good for one of their cards, which means we've got 5 down here, and this must be 6, by which I mean 4, because there's 5 of them, not 6 of them. Sorry, when you play 3-player games you have more objectives, that's what threw me off. Anyway, let's jump into the first round and get this underway. So Fecula herself got the Wurmspat's game started, and she actually did quite a few things, so we're going to have to do this step by step. She started here. All the Nurgle's troops here moved 3, so she moved 3 to there. Then she used her Stream of Corruption, don't ask where it comes from. Range 3 to magic spell, so you roll equal to her wizard level, which is 2. Only does 1 damage. She got a crit and a success, so Spawnmaw took 1 damage from that. Now you might notice there's another magic die down there. That's because in Power Step she cast Gift of Contagion. You pick an enemy within 3 hexes of the caster, and you need the swirly thing, which she got. Minus 1 damage from the chosen fighter's attack actions, and this persists until the end of the round or until they die. So we might keep that near the table, just remember. And that was what she should have rolled 2 dice for it, but 1 die was a crit, so it definitely cast. Ephilim's Pandaemonium, not casting any power or not playing any cards. Back to Nurgle, and they did steady advance, which is why she's not where she should be. Choose up to 2 friendly fighters and push each chosen fighter 1 hex. So she pushed herself 1 forward, so she's adjacent to Spawn Maw, and Golgok the Butcher also got pushed forwards 1, just to make up for his slowness. Alright, the chainsaw seems to have stopped for now. I think it was just a psyop, because I was considering playing Texas Chainsaw Massacre on my Twitch stream tonight, and I think that was trying to subconsciously get the sound of a chainsaw in my head. Anyway, for Ephilim's Pandaemonium, the first activation was Flame Spooler, who did a charge by moving 1 whole square forwards, which put him in range 3 to use his Flame Splash on the Butcher. Range 3, 2 magic dice, needing the lightning bolts for 1 damage. He rolled 1 success, which was blocked, so no damage there. But in the power phase, Grand Scheming was played, because this is all Zeech does, he's plots within plots. Staggered each fighter with 1 or more charge tokens, so Flamespooler himself became staggered, so did Fecula, but with Flamespooler staggering basically himself there, he immediately scores Callous Manipulator for 1 glory. Scorbus immediately after an activation step or a power step, it was the latter, and it's the secondary scoring condition, 2 or more friendly changers are staggered. Flamespooler is, and so is Stairfish. So that has scored instantly for 1 glory, which is also instantly being spent on Boundless Change for Flamespooler, which I think we saw last time. When this fighter makes an attack action, he's considered to be supported by people within 3 of him, friendly fighters within 3, obviously. So that is now on him. Pretty good first turn. Second activation for the Wurmspat was the Butcher, who did a charge action to go after Flamespooler, getting adjacent to him. He's the toughest of the 3 in that he rolls 3 dice looking for hammers, and again, hammers are more likely in those dice than blades or daggers. So he got a crit though, as it turns out he didn't roll a hammer, but Flamespooler did not roll a crit in return, so he got hit for 2 damage. In the power phase though, he is going to attempt to kill Flamespooler by playing Rampant Disease, which is a Psycho card, so we'll hopefully get that in focus without the glare there. Roll 1 attack die for each enemy fighter adjacent to 1 or more friendly fighters. For each roll of a crit, that enemy fighter is dealt 1 damage, which in this instance would kill him. So we're going to do that roll live to prove no shenanigans and see what we get. It kind of skidded across the table there. It is not an exclamation mark, however, so Flamespooler gets to live on 1 health. Ephilim's Pandaemonium activate Ephilim himself. He did a move action up from where he started, just moving 2 onto objective 1 here, which is slightly askew. And then, in the power phase, played Bolt of Zeech. You roll, if cast, choose an enemy fighter within 4 hexes of the caster, deal 1 damage to and stagger the chosen fighter. Now, actually, should he have had 2 dice? Because doesn't he have a +1 wizard level while this fighter is within 3 hexes of 2 or more? Yes, he actually should have had an extra die. Doesn't matter, it was also a swirl, so it did not cast. It would have only done 1 damage to Fecula, but every hit counts, and sadly that one is a duff. So the third action for the Wurmspat had to be Sepsimus, because he's the only one who didn't have a charge token, and that did lead to a little rules thing that we weren't sure about. Can you opt to do a charge even if you can't attack anyone when you finish your move? Because with only being able to move 3, that's how far it got him. He does have range 2 because he's got a spear, but there's no one within range 2 to attack. So does that mean he has to do a move, or can he still opt to do a charge? Because it's important, because if everyone has a charge token, that means someone who's already activated in charge can activate again, since there's only 3 of them and you have 4 activations. We're going to play it that that's the way it's done. If that is incorrect, by all means let us know in the comments and it will be corrected going forwards. Second last activation of the first round for Ephilim's Pandaemonium was Spawn Maw, who used his prodigious movement of 5 to gun it away from where he was in front of Fecula here, all the way back into Nurgle territory, where the Wurmspat started, sitting on objective 4, and he did a charge because he could attack Sepsimus with his Warp Fire, I think? Warp Blaze, sorry. Range 3, 2 dice needing swirls for 1 damage. He got 1 success, which had not got through due to the block. So no damage there, but he's positioned himself in their rears to, I don't know, sit on an objective and then potentially attack, because he does have, I think he has the best range. Nope, you know what, Ephilim does. Ephilim has a range 4, and that is very rare. And the last activation for the Wurmspat was Fecula, again just choosing to do that same magic attack for 1 damage. Opted to do it on the Stairfish because she had 3 potential targets within range 3, him, Ephilim and also Kindlefinger, but the latter 2, they have 2 dodge dice, whereas he only has the 1. She was looking for swirls, she got 1, which was not blocked, so 1 damage of the 2 health the Stairfish has. More importantly though, that is 3 enemy fighters with wounds now, because he has 1, Spawnmaw has 1, and Flamesprawler has 2. So the Wurmspat, they are all inspired. Oh, there was no power cards played in the power phase there, but upon that phase ending, closing the circle scores for 2 for Ephilim's Pandaemonium. Score this immediately after an opponent's power step if your warband holds 3 or more objectives. They do. Ephilim has 1, Flamesprawler has 1, and Spawnmaw has 1. So that is 2 more glory, meaning that they've still got an activation to go, but it's 3-0 currently. So it was a bit of an interesting final activation for Ephilim's Pandaemonium. They opted not to move anybody, they opted to draw a power card instead, fishing for something in particular. It was any upgrade is what they were looking for. So they spent 1 in the power phase to equip too many maws to Spawnmaw. He somehow managed to grow an extra mouth, hopefully that'll come into focus, there we go. Fire's attack actions have Grievous 1, extra damage on crits. So Spawnmaw has that, which means in total 2 of them have a single upgrade each, and that means that as we go into the end phase, that's going to score the card that we drew on the surge there. But we'll cover that properly in a second. So at the true end of the first round, the Wurmspat are actually scoring a couple of cards. They are scoring Spread His Blessings, which puts them on the board for 1 glory. Score this in the end phase if your warband holds 1 or more objectives in enemy territory. Fecula does. They're also scoring Rotbringers. Score this in the end phase if your warband successfully casts 2 or more spells. Fecula did her spell attack action, and they also successfully cast Gift of Contagion. So that is the 2. So they have 2 glory now, that puts them on the board. Unfortunately for them though, 2 cards are scoring from Ephilim's Pandaemonium, giving them a total of 3 glory between them. 1 glory for Scornful Stance. Score this in the end phase if your friend leader is holding an objective. He is, he's sitting on objective number 1. For 1 glory, and he's getting 2 for the thing we just talked about there. Score this in the end phase if 2 or more surviving friendly changers each have 1 or more upgrades, which they do, thanks to that last action being used to draw power cards. So obviously it was luck of the deck, but it scored for 2. Meaning, as we go into the second round, the Pandaemonium are ahead of the Wurmspat 6-2. Top of the second round, and we'll quickly go over the Ephilim's Pandaemonium stuff first. Spawnmaw has inspired, Kindlefinger has been staggered, Flamesprawler was given a guard token, and the Stairfish was pushed 1 hex to get out of Fecula's range, because if she hits him he's just going to die. Some glory is being spent on various upgrades. Let's go over Ephilim's Pandaemonium first. Writhing Tentacles is being played on Flamesprawler. Can't give it to a large follower, they don't have a large follower reaction. It gives them access to this reaction. Use it after an activation step or power step in which this fighter was dealt damage. You can choose to either move 1 or heal 1. Simple enough. So that's being put on Flamesprawler. Aether Tether is being put on Kindlefinger, and this one actually does not cost a glory to spend, so they're doing 3 upgrades, but only 2 of them cost glory. Don't spend any glory to play this card. At the end of an action phase, or when this fighter is chosen by a gambit or is dealt damage, break the card. -1 dice from the next attack action to a minimum of 1 that targets this fire, just to give Kindlefinger a little bit of defense. And then Spiteful Mouths are also being put on Flamesprawler. Reaction, use this when the fighter is the target of an attack action after the determined success step. If the defense roll contained at least 1 success or crit success, and the attacker is within 2 hexes, you bite them back for 1 damage. For the Wurmspat, they are playing 2 upgrades, both of them on Fecula. She is getting one of her unique upgrades called Fetid Shroud. It gives her a reroll on 1 of her defense dice. Now that she's inspired, she still only has 1 actually. The other 2 go up to 2, but she doesn't. And she's also getting a Fly Swarm, because of course she is. So this one is -1 die from attack actions with range 3 or more that target this fighter. So to give her a bit of protection against the long range spell casting essentially. And with that, into the round. So the Butcher got the round started, staying exactly where he was and just taking a swing at Flamesprawler to eat those upgrades and get rid of a potential threat that only has 1 health left. rolling those 3 dice, needing hammers, got 2 crits. Flamespuller got 1 crit, and shield, which does nothing for him. So, although 2 crits trump 1 crit, meaning that he is dead, it does mean, however, that upgrade, the Spiteful Mouths, kicks in, so the Butcher has taken 1 damage. But Flamespuller is still gone off the table now, and that glory is immediately being spent on another upgrade for Fecula to try and keep her alive. It is being spent on Unstoppable Tread. Reaction: after this fighter's activation, you can move them 1 hex. It has to be after they're done, but it gives her a little bit more movement when she's finished doing things. A sudden change of fate for Ephilim, who activated for his Pandaemonium, opting to stay where he was, not charging or anything, and using his, what is it called, Fiery Change Bolt, range 4, hoping to do a bit more damage to the Butcher up there, Golgak, and it would have done 2 damage, but he was only getting 1 die because he doesn't have 2 changelings within 3 hexes of him, he only has 1. And he didn't roll what he needed, so it does nothing. Well, Sepsimus was the second activation for the Wurmspat, opting to charge and go after Kindlefinger, who was staggered. And that stagger is going to cost him. He lost a die in the attack due to the Aether Tether, which would break now whether he was dead or not. But on his inspired side, Sepsimus gets to choose between doing 2 dice looking for hammers for 3 damage, or 3 dice with scything looking for swords that does 2 damage. He opted for the latter because 3 dice looking for swords seemed better than hammers on 2, especially if he was losing 1 die from the roll. As it turns out, it didn't really matter because he rolled crits. Now, Kindlefinger also rolled a crit, but needed to do 2 of them to counteract 2, so with apologies for kicking the camera there, Kindlefinger gets splatted for 1 more glory for the Wurmspat. Ephilim's bad luck continues. He activated again attempted to shoot a change bolt at Golgak the Butcher, and again didn't get what he needed on the die. But even though he missed twice in a row, he actually did meet the criteria to score for 1 glory, Arcane Mastery, although I would call the Mastery into question. Score immediately after the second or subsequent spell cast by a friendly fighter in the same phase. This is all the same action phase, so that has scored for 1. So he did something at least. Second last activation for the Wurmspat. Golgak the Butcher activated and did a charge onto objective 3 there in order to get adjacent to the Starefish. 3 dice needing hammers, and he got triple hammer, which does mean if the Starfish had rolled 1 crit he would have been fine, but he was looking for dodges, rolled a shield, and takes more than he even had full health. He only had 1 health left, but that does 3 damage, I think. Oh no, it does only 2, but either way. He is very much murderized for 1 more glory, meaning that the Wurmspat are kind of catching up. That's their 5th glory, but the Ephilim's Pandaemonium has 7. Second last activation for Ephilim's Pandaemonium was the man himself for the 3rd time, trying once again to do that spell attack action, this time targeting Fecula and getting a crit, but she only went and rolled a crit on her 1 defense die, so she fights off the magical interference and stops him doing anything. It's not a good turn, or not a good round rather, for Ephilim. I did forget to mention, but the Fly Swarm that Fecula has does nothing because it's to a minimum of 1, and he was rolling 1 die anyway. And she activated because the other 2 had charge tokens, so she had to. She stayed where she was, she did her magic attack, and got a crit rolling against Ephilim, who rolled his defense dice and also got a crit, so how do they like it? She just wasted her turn doing nothing as well. So if it isn't obvious, Ephilim really wanted just to do 1 damage. I mean, he would have done 2, but even 1 damage would have been enough. He just needed to do a point of damage with a spell to score a card. He tried again. He spent the whole turn trying to do so, and he has failed every single time. So that's the round. That's pretty bad. There's only 2 of them left as well. Oh, we are having a slight correction. At the top of the round, Ephilim should have inspired because 2 of the changelings who were alive were inspired. So he himself, that's how he inspires when 2 of them are. And his wizard level does go up to 2. Now, it's not going to make a blind bit of difference. The dice have been rolled out for what would have been added on to each roll. Couldn't remember the defense rolls, but we were just rolling out the magic dice to see if it mattered. That's a miss for first turn, or second turn rather, because first turn was Flamespuller, I think. Second one was also a miss. Third one was a hit, but that was the one that had the double crits, so it wouldn't have made any difference. So that's not ideal, obviously, because totally forgot. Rolled out some dice now, and it seems like it wouldn't have made a blind bit of difference. So after an exceptionally frustrating second round for Ephilim's Pandaemonium, they are not scoring any of their objective cards in hand. Although, to be honest, the Wurmspat's only scoring 1 and it's worth 1. So it's not all bad because Ephilim's Pandaemonium is still winning. So Blessings 3 is being scored. Score this in the end phase if a surviving friendly fighter has 3 or more upgrades. Fecula has exactly 3, so that is their 6th glory gained right there. So as we go into the final round, 7 to Ephilim's Pandaemonium, 6 to the Wurmspat. So top of the final round, round 3, and Ephilim's Pandaemonium have actually snatched first activation this time around. They also got the most hilariously timed power card draw from discarding and drawing back up ever, but we'll just quickly cover there is one card for the Wurmspat being played as an upgrade for one of their glory. Stolid bulk is being given to Fecula because she's collecting all the upgrades. She can no longer be driven back, so that just means she can't be forced back from a attack action against her that draws or succeeds. And the reference I was making was to Arch Sorcerer, which is an upgrade for Ephilim himself, and it would give him a reroll on his casting rolls. It is just hilarious that only came into hand now, but hey, he'll get to use it this turn. Well, that was a bit more of an exciting turn for Ephilim's Pandaemonium. Ephilim himself activated. You might also notice there's a returning guest star on the table. He rolled to attack Gulgok the Butcher, rolled 2 crits this time, which means he suffers backlash from casting the spell too well, because that's just hilarious, and suffers 1 damage. He did successfully get through the defense roll, but there was a shield in there, so damage was reduced by 1, so Gulgok took 1 damage, not 2, and was then pushed back. In the power phase, Summoned Abominations was successfully cast, that's why that 3rd die is down there with the lightning bolt. If cast, place 1 friendly change of its out of action on a starting hex in your territory. The starting hex is right here, and then finally, I think there's one more play to be done. Let me just double check. Yep, yeah, there is. It is Shared Mutations. So if this is cast, deal 1 damage to each enemy fighter that's adjacent to 1 or more friendly fighters, and that's going to be selected on Flamespuller. So if it casts, that means he's going to do 1 damage. Oh, and it did not get cast because it needs 2 lightning bolts, right? Oh, but, well, who counts as casting that? I guess it has to be Ephilim, right? So he would get his reroll. I presume he would get his reroll. Well, that means 1 more die roll, and if it's a lightning bolt, it casts. It was... Oh, was that in frame? Yeah. It was cast, assuming the reroll was allowed on that. If it isn't, then this is being done wrong. But that means that Fecula takes 1 damage from Flamespuller just melding out of them. Like, that's very, very strange art of him coming out of her like that. But it does also score a card, because that is the criteria for Might of the Great Changer. Score this immediately after the second or subsequent enemy fighter was dealt damage by your warband in the same phase. It doesn't need to be the same turn or activation. It is the same phase, and 2 Fecula and the Butcher were both dealt damage. So that's 1 glory. Though amongst all that, I did forget to mention the Wurmspat used the Burgeoning. We don't really need to worry about it. They're not going to be near a lethal hex. It was just played because it's a cycle card, and that plays into how to score some of their objectives. First activation for the Wurmspat in the final turn was Sepsimus. Stayed where he was because he's got range 2 on his 2 dice needing hammers 3 damage attack. He rolled a double support and a single support. The single support counts as a success because Fecula is supporting. He was attacking Flamespuller, who was looking for dodges and rolled 2 single supports, meaning that he came back very briefly just to die again. Although he helped us a card score, so I guess it's not all bad, but he did give up 1 more glory for that. And then Nauseous Revulsion was put into play, overwriting the cycle card we just talked about. -1 dice to a minimum of 1 from attack actions made by enemy fighters adjacent to 1 or more friendlies, and it persists until the end of the round or until another cycle is played. So they're so horrible and disgusting, plus the quote on this card is just hilarious. That just ain't right. They get very repulsed and lose dice on their attack rolls. Now, Zeech mostly attacks with magic, so it might not matter, but whatever. Remember Spawn Maw? He's been alive this whole time. He activated second and did a charge into Fecula's bank, rolling 3 dice, looking for hammers for 2 damage with his mouth trap. Oh, he got a crit though, actually, so that would be 3 damage. And she did, although she also rolled a crit on her defense roll, he still had a success on top of that, so it goes through. But yeah, I forgot he had Grievous 1 now, thanks to the Too Many Maws upgrade purchase for him. Did she have something that would have protected him against, protected her against that? Oh, she could reroll her defense die, but crit's the best possible result, so that doesn't help. No, I don't think so. She can't be grabbing back. And it wasn't a range 3 attack, it was a range 1, so no, nothing she had helps her. So that means, that means on top of the damage she already had, Fecula is actually dead. Because she already had 1 damage, so yeah, that Grievous made all the difference. So she is out of there for 1 glory. Thank goodness they don't have more health, otherwise they'd all be worth 2. And Spawn Maw just comes out of nowhere to tip things even more in Tzeentchi's favour score-wise. Not bodies left on the field-wise, but score-wise. Oh, I knew there was something that should have been affecting the number of dice rolled there. The Nauseous Revulsion should have taken away a die. There is no way of saying which one of those 3 dice wouldn't have been rolled, so we're just going to roll with it, as it were, and just have it as it happened. But yeah, there should have only been 2 dice rolled there to see what happened. In an act of retribution, Septimus activated, did a charge onto that objective, now vacated by Fecula, rolling for the 2 dice, needing hammer. Oh, he should have been rolling the other one, because the other one would have done enough damage to kill him, needing swords. Doesn't matter though, because he didn't roll any successes at all. So, a bit of a whiff there, trying to take out Spawn Maw. Now, all of a sudden, it's all going pear-shaped for the Wurmspat. Ephilim activated, and stayed where he was to once again fire a change bolt, this time into Septimus's back, getting 2 successes, didn't even need his rerolls from the Arch Sorcerer upgrade. Whiff of a defense roll, that means 2 damage, putting him at 2 health remaining, which is how much the Butcher has as well. Septimus could activate again because they both have charge tokens. He took another swing at Spawn Maw, this time doing the right attack, 3 dice needing swords. He only got 1 success, but Spawn Maw managed to whiff his defense, taking 2 damage to the face, which is enough that he is out of there. He already had 1 damage on him, so that is 1 glory scored there, which might make all the difference. As we approach the end of the game here, we're over to the final activation for Ephilim's Pandaemonium, and I think it's going to be the man himself again, because, oh, it has to be, yeah, it has to be. And what a wet fish of an activation it was. With 3 rolls, he ended up having 1 success on doing his magic attack onto Septimus, trying to kill him, and he rolled double crits, so he took no damage. And although there is 1 activation left to take us to the end of the game from the Wurmspat, they actually can't do anything. They both got charge tokens. Because there's only 2 of them, one of them could activate. Neither of them have range to reach Ephilim. They're not allowed to make move actions. They're not allowed to do anything else. There is no cards left for them to play. So that just takes us to the final scoring. So both sides kind of messed up their chance to do some last minute scores there. If the Butcher had been able to move 1 square, it would have been worth 2 more glory to the Wurmspat, which might end up costing them. They are scoring 1 though. They're scoring Cycle of Decay, which is why they were playing those Cycle cards. Score this in the end phase if you played 2 or more Cycle ploys in the preceding action phase. They did indeed, the Burgeoning and Nauseous Revulsion, meaning that their final score is 9. For Ephilim's Pandaemonium, they are scoring Ineffable Capering, which is a little bit complex, but score this in the end phase if your warband casts 1 or more spells during the preceding action phase. Yeah, I think they cast 3. And your warband made 1 or more successful range 1 attack actions during the preceding action phase. They did. Spawn Maw made a successful range 1 attack action for 2 more glory. Meaning, at the end of the game, 9 plays 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So, unfortunately for Team Nurgle, 11 beats 9, and Ephilim goes away triumphant. All his changelings dead, but hey, the bodyguards did a bad job. Fecula died, unless of course that was done incorrectly, and the die, well, one of the successes was the die that wouldn't have been rolled because there should have been 1 less. If Fecula had lived, that would have made a difference of 2, which means they still would have lost by 1. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. No, actually it would have been a draw. So if Fecula actually should have lived, we'll never know because we don't know what the result of 2 dice as opposed to the 3 dice would have been. But had she lived from that attack, and presumably then another attempt to kill her from Ephilim, that would have made all the difference and it would have been a draw. But the draw would be the best possible outcome for them. They weren't going to win that one. But anyway, I sincerely hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more Warhammer Underworlds. It's a very addictive game. It's very fun. And hopefully see you in the future for more. Until next time, ta-ta for now.